and his team, and tomorrow's budget will show that again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We've heard some fine words from that member and the Minister for Corrections, but what I would like to do is sort of put it in perspective. And the way I'll do that is by just putting the facts out there. Because what I think we've got on the 23rd of September is quite a big choice in society, whether we want a benevolent and compassionate society with solutions and ideas and innovative ways to move forward, or a divisive and rather punitive government, which we have here when it comes to the treating of the most vulnerable. Now let me give you a couple of stats, Mr. Speaker, if I may. The Minister, this is the CEO of Corrections who told us this at Select Committee. 20,000 New Zealanders every year enter a jail. 20,000 Kiwis. Of those, 14,000 are there for 6 months or longer. What he also told us is that 62% of prisoners who walk through a prison door, walk through the jail gate, have a mental health or addiction issue. What they also told us is they only test 7,000 a year. So they only test 35% of all prisoners who walk through the gate, and yet there are 8,680 who are there for 6 months or longer. Now, I said to the Minister, the CEO, the man in charge of the operations of Corrections, I said, Mr. Smith, are you at least putting in place, are Corrections at least putting in place the programs and processes to give these prisoners a chance to at least be productive citizens when they come out of jail? And you know what he said? He said, and I quote, "I don't think we're that ambitious." He said, "I don't think we're that ambitious." Mr. Speaker, this is an admission that what we are doing with 20,000 New Zealanders a year is locking them up, leaving them in there. Often they come out a little bit angrier, a little bit madder, a little bit badder, and we wonder why we've got recidivism rates going through the roof. And then we hear from the Minister we've got 16 new alcohol counsellors in prisons. Now, that is good news, but it's only a start, Mr. Speaker. 16 new to cope with 8,680 prisoners with a mental health and or addiction problem. It just, it's not even scratching the surface. Mr. Speaker, what this government has announced is over $1 billion on a new prison. Mr. Speaker, between 2005 and 2015, the corrections budget's gone from $526 million a year to nearly $1.5 billion a year. That's $1 billion a year increase over 10 years on corrections. And the questions that I'd like to ask, Mr. Speaker, is do we want to live in a society that actually locks people up and throw away the key? Or do we want to live in a society where we at least deal with the issues that are facing our communities? I think, Mr. Speaker, if we had spent the $1 billion we're about to spend on a jail and the extra $1 billion a year we're paying to corrections, if we spend that money on education, on mental health and our health services, on community policing, on housing, Mr. Speaker, we wouldn't need the prisons. We wouldn't need these prisons because we would be dealing with those who are most vulnerable in our communities before they get to prison. That's why I say, Mr. Speaker, that a Labor-led government actually has solutions apart from let's lock them up and throw away the key. Spending another $1.3 billion on a jail when we should be spending $1.3 billion on houses, on mental health, on police, on education. That is what I think New Zealanders want for a government. Mr. Speaker, we had the Minister of Corrections also say that victimisations had dropped. I don't know where she got that stat from, Mr. Speaker, because the last full year we showed between 2016 and 15, victimisations had increased by, the exact figure, 11,568. That's how much they had increased by. Assaults were up by 3,308. Sexual assaults up by 214. Robberies up by 18%. Burglaries up to $75,000 a year. And let me talk about meth, Mr. Speaker. And I quote the police, quote, "New Zealand's vulnerability as a destination for methamphetamine shipments appears to be increasing," end quote. Quote, "The number of children found in clandestine labs or assessments has increased each year since 2012. But worse, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to quote as well, "Despite the increase in seizures, therefore the removal of methamphetamine from the market, there appears to be no visible impact on the availability of methamphetamine." Mr Speaker, unless we start investing in the processes and the resources to drive this out of our communities, it's going to remain. We need a benevolent government, a compassionate government, not a punitive one.
The member's time has expired.
I need 10 minutes.
Mr Speaker.
I call Andrew Bailey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.